who weren't able to, they'll be able to watch this later. So David, with that, it's all you.
Okay, good good afternoon to everybody, and welcome to quick discussion of LTAP. For some of you, I know it's morning. We're going to be actually using a tool called Poll Everywhere. It's like Mentimeter and other tools to get some feedback from everybody, just to see how everybody does, and to get some information that we can actually use later on. So you can go to the chat. I put a link in the chat. You can just click on the link. You can do it right on the web, or you can even download the app if you prefer. It's an app for Android or for Apple. Um, so with that, we'll go ahead and get started. And yes, that squirrel was not happy. I was going to take their acorn away or whatever. So before we get started, this is actually going to help the rest of Ltap U as well. So where is everybody from? All you have to do is click on the map where you're located so we can get a sense of where everybody's from. Okay. And I'll give you, 30 seconds or so. Most of them will give you about that much time. Somebody's swimming in the Gulf. Okay. There's always
Take
somebody.
your spins off, David.
We got two people swimming in the Gulf. Okay. Well, at least you're together. Okay. Maybe you're on one of those oil platforms out there by you, Leo. So, okay, cool. So we got a variety of folks from all over the place. Quite a few from Kentucky and Louisiana. That's looks like our big pop there. Okay, cool. Okay, the next thing is I've been with LTAP 4, and you can put in there less than a year, 1 to 2, 3 to 5, 5 to 10, 11 to 20, and 20 plus years. And this again, well, not just for the session I'm going to do here for the next 20 minutes, but all of LTAP U, it helps us quite a bit. Well, Kim, we got a variety of folks. Everybody from those who don't know what light switches are to the skeletons in the closet themselves. So, okay,
Awesome.
okay. So what I'm going to do is most of these are going to be questions about LTAP or in LTAPA, and then we'll give you the answer, but talk about them a little bit. So we'll start with, how old is LTAP? How old is LTAP? 1914, 1951, 1982, and 1991. And of course, if you're smart, you can watch what other people answer, and you'll get a pretty good, quick answer.
Hey, David, just real quick, if you're seeing a screen pop up that says register for credit, just skip that. It might show up for the questions.
It shouldn't show up for any of them except maybe this one.
Okay.
If it does show up for this one, I was going to ask you if it did. It shouldn't show up after that.
It showed up.
Of course, but I cleared it for the rest of them. So, okay. So we got a couple of folks who are being adventurous. LTAP came out of 3 existing centers that existed prior to federal involvement. Purdue and Cornell had programs that did very similar stuff to what LTAP does today. Not exactly the same, but similar. And our director at the time, Lynn Irwin, met with a guy by the name of Bob Betzel in TRB one day at a TRB meeting for breakfast, and wrote down what eventually became, under the Office of Implementation, Federal Highway, what became the LTAP pilot in 1982. Okay, for those who are wondering, we've been around since 1951 as a program. Purdue started their first road school in 1914, and that we've actually found records going back even further than that. TTAP joined the LTAP program in 1991. And in 20 minutes, I can't go into too much more history than that, but that gets us started. There was a pilot of 3 initial centers. So the next question is, which of the 4 centers listed was not one of the 3 initial pilot programs? Indiana, which its official name was the Highway Extension Research Project for Indiana Counties and Cities. What a mouthful. Now they're Indiana LTAP. Missouri, Technology Transfer Assistance Program, the Cornell Local Roads Program, or the Oklahoma Center for Local Government Technology. And by the way, that 3rd center that was the predates LTAP is actually the one in Oklahoma. Let's see what we have here. Quite a variety of answers, and it turns out one of those weird quirks in the way things work, we are actually the one that wasn't the official pilot. We never got sent any information on it. I won't go into why, but we weren't one of the initial pilots. In fact, we weren't even in the first 10 when there was actually initially one center in each of the 10 at the time FHWA regions. But we joined in 1984, so no big deal. And where are centers located? Well, they're located at universities, colleges, mostly, some at state highway agencies. There's a couple of others. So what is the second most common location from these four choices? Land grant university, another higher education like a community college or just a state university, other, the infamous other, or the state highway. Let's see here. Oh boy, a lot of people think state highway. And the answer is, of course, you're right, it's barely, but it is state highway. I checked this data out last week. Currently, there are 27 at land-grant universities. There are 12 at other higher education, including just state universities that aren't the land-grant or community colleges, things like that. 13 are at state highway agencies, and 2 that are either an NGO or a private concern. The key here is just, it doesn't matter where you are. We're all in this together. We're all here to help each other out. So really, this is an open-ended question. What does your center do? Now, this is a Wordle, so one word is great, but if you type in multiple words, it'll show up with multiple words. So let's see here. What does your Ltap center do? Training, of course. Train, technical assistance, outreach, technology transfer. Joy, I like that one. You do joy, that's pretty good, okay. You provide a voice for other agencies. Okay. So as you can see, the two that are obviously hitting to the top are training and technical assistance. And that is the primary function of almost every center around the country. It doesn't mean it's the only thing we do. You can see there's partnerships in there, there's webinars, there's conferences, there's connections, and it's that ability to work together in a big network that actually makes Ltap and NLTAP as powerful and as strong as we are, okay? If you're not doing one of these things, that's great. You can either keep doing what you're doing, but serve the local needs in your particular state. And that's all that anybody ever needs to do. Now, what happened was after a few years of the pilot going on, it started to spread and go to every single state around the country. We realized that there was a need to create a national organization of all of the Ltap centers. Our original name was the National Association of Transportation Technology Transfer Centers. In fact, that is actually our official name still. We're actually doing business as NLTAPA. It's not the best acronym in the world. And now we're called Ltap anyway, so that makes better sense with NLTAPA. And so we created an organizational structure. And so which of these is not an elected office? Elected by the member centers. Every center is a member if you paid your dues. And yeah, you're right, it's the treasurer. We actually have 3 elected positions, the president-elect, and the vice president. And we have 3 appointed positions, a treasurer, a vice treasurer, and a secretary. And those positions are appointed by the EC, okay? And the goal here is to work and communicate with each other. So for instance, the incoming officer, the vice president, who you'll hear about next week, we have a new one coming in, is always the chair of which work group? We have a series of work groups. We have training resources, partnerships, conference planning, and professional development. Okay, a lot of people think conference planning. If you join the officer corps, and we hope you will sometime in your career if you stick around, you will get to do conference planning, but the first year you actually start with partnerships. The second year is conference planning, and in the third year you get to be the chief bottle washer. Okay, so partnerships is a very important part of it, and we'll talk more about that, but there are actually currently 7 different work groups to spread the work out. We have communications, conference planning, innovation and implementation, partnerships, professional development, safety, and training resources. If you have an interest in one of these, over today and next week's conference, find out who the chairs are, talk to them. We're always looking for help. And it can be 10 minutes, it could be 2 hours, it's whatever you can provide, but that sharing of information is really what is one of the major keys to make it as successful as possible. Okay. Now we also have partnerships with outside organizations, and Ltap does. And we actually have some current partnerships. We have 4. Which of these associations used to be an Ltap partner? We used to have a partnership with one of these groups. Salt Institute, ARTBA, ATSA, or TRB. We have some policies and rules on how to do that. We'll talk about that before the top of the hour here. But the answer is the Salt Institute. Okay. Our current partners are AASHTO, the American Public Works Association, or APWA, National Association of County Engineers, or NACE, and National Transportation Training Directors, NTTD. We have partnerships at a national level. But what I care about even more is when I say the word partner, who do you think of? Who are your partners? Who are your partners? APWA, of course, at the state level, yeah. Your DOT, your local agencies, yeah. Okay. Engineers, different subgroups, the cabinet, I can see the Kentucky folks have gotten a hold of this. The division at the Federal Highway, yep. Instructors, it could be private associations within your state. So the idea is we can partner with almost everyone, from insurance reciprocals to students in some cases. The idea is we're all working together to create this web, internet, whatever we want to call this relationships that we've got. If you need help with that, ask. There's plenty of folks around, and as you saw, there's plenty of experience available. So how many regions does Ltap have? We broke ourselves into regions to be able to have smaller meetings that weren't so crazy. Otherwise, it gets complicated. 50 individual centers at the states, Puerto Rico, and TTAP, that could get complicated. So how many regions do we have? And nobody fell for the trick question. That's good. Y'all are smart. There are actually 8 official regions. We have they were based mostly on the old federal regions with some merging together when they were set up. And then Puerto Rico got moved from the Northeast into the Southeast, and we currently have 8 regions, and they have regional meetings. This is a picture. I really hope next year we're able to share a picture like this of the 5 regional meetings, or 6, or however many we've had. We actually like doing joint meetings now and then where we share between 2 different regions to have some overlap to help each other out. Each of those regions has a regional rep. That's how we make up the executive committee, the EC. And we have monthly meetings. If a regional rep cannot make the executive committee meeting, it's monthly online and 3 in person. They should, and you get to select more than one. They should not worry about it. Submit a monthly report, get a proxy to attend, or beg for forgiveness. I hate to say this to our officers, but it looks like there's too many people voting for one. I hope they weren't voting for her, but yeah, you should get a proxy. And truth be told, we really should be submitting monthly reports. It actually helps. Having served as the president, trust me, it's really nice to get a report, and then we can go through the EC meetings a little bit faster. Just what your work group was up to, what your region was up to. But yeah, get a proxy. Somebody else from your region, somebody who might be interested in becoming a regional representative would be a great person to have sit in on a few executive committees, okay? Now we have a whole bunch of documents that are available to us that we use to run the organization. So which of these documents is the least critical for executive committee members to know? Which of these? And I hope you all get this one right. It should be pretty clear since all the others start with NYLTAPA. We technically follow Robert's rules, but the truth be told, if you get on the EC, you really probably should at least read through the bylaws. We have an operational guide that helps us out. We have an orientation guide for new members of the executive committee. And while we follow Robert's rules, if need be, we'll just let them duke it out. It's more fun that way anyway. So I was wondering if Donna's on here. She probably hates that picture. I apologize, Donna. Now we hold a national conference. Obviously, this year it's virtual. It was virtual last year, but normally we hold them together. And we've been holding them since the 1990s. We've actually gone back to 4 locations around the country. We've actually been to 4 places. So which is not a place where the national conference has been held twice? New Orleans, Breckenridge, St. Petersburg, Boise, and St. Louis. So which one? Interesting. So I made up a map. The answer is actually St. Louis. I know it sounds like we should go to St. Louis a lot. And Heath, you did a great job when you hosted us here. We'd love to go back to St. Louis. You could join the list. But it turns out, hi Heath. It turns out the actual answer is St. Louis. We haven't been there twice. We went to Breckenridge with one of the first actual Ltap conferences. We went to St. Petersburg down in Florida twice as part of an international things. We went to Boise twice. But the point is, we've been around the country. We like to go to different places to share information, to learn about how folks do things in different places. And it's that communication that really makes us strong as we possibly can be. Okay? And if your state's on this and you haven't hosted, or you see like a 9, that means you were all the way back in the 90s, or even longer back, the 8 means the 80s. You know, maybe it's time to go back to that particular state, of course. I hate to say this, but we've never hosted, but I'm trying to find a good place to bring us, but that's a different problem. So which of these is not an Ltap communication tool? And that's the thing is you got to realize there's Ltap, which is a federal program run through the states. There's in Ltap, we work and share with each other. And so what do we have? Well, obviously we have our website, nltapa.org. I hope you've been to it. We have a Google group where we can send emails back and forth. We have a thing called Basecamp. We have an account where we can share files and do projects, and we can even assign tasks for that under Basecamp. It's the SharePoint that's not officially an Ltap tool. It's a federal highway tool. In fact, you recently should have gotten a notification. If your center hasn't, you should check to get access to the updated SharePoint. Okay. Now, I'll be honest, I have not gone to the updated SharePoint myself. It's I'm behind schedule in getting to that. But everybody should be in there. That's where you put in your annual data to the Federal Highway Administration. Okay. So now I'm going to look at the questions and see if I have anything in the chat, but I'm also going to see if anybody can stump the nut. So see if you can stump me here. And let me look at the chat here. Can I get a contact for someone who can help me with Google Group? There's one right there. You can just send me an email at david.orr@cornell.edu. I can get that taken care of for you, Andy. Any other questions in here? We could do the Angry Beaver again. Sorry.
Hey, David, can you type your email address in the chat box? Just in case.
I can, yes. And make sure I typed it correctly. There you go. So everybody, you got 5 minutes to stump the nut, or we can move on. That's up to you, Cam.
No, we definitely have time for questions. So I know I learned one new thing. I would have swore Breckenridge was not where we'd had 2 conferences.
Who was the 3rd president of NLTAPA? Ooh. Where was the first NLTAPA conference held? You guys are tricky. Let's see. I keep records. I'm going to slide this off so you don't know all my secrets. The first NLTAPA conference that was an actual conference was actually held in Breckenridge, Colorado. The first time we met as directors was in Homewood, Illinois. And the 3rd official president was Patsy Anderson, Kentucky. Our first president was Don, I never pronounce his name right, DeGraffenad from Arizona, and then Tony Rosenbaum from here in New York. So, which region has had the most NLTAPA presidents? Oh, I'd have to go back and look. I'm guessing North Central, though. North Central had quite a few.
Thinking it's North Central too.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is Keith.
Hi, Keith. Yeah, we've got Bill Bowmaster. We've got Dwayne Smith. He did it 2 years in a row. We've got Keith. We've got Lisa Harris, Kevin Burke, Daniel Cady, Ken Scorseth. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it would be North Central. Okay.
All right, everyone, this is Mary. If we don't have more questions for David, I just in the chat just put a link to our website that David mentioned in the professional development work group page. We have an acronyms resource for you because especially for the new folks can be a bit of an alphabet soup. So that's a great cheat sheet to try and figure out what's what and who's who and and how do you actually spell that. So great for trivia when we're meeting in conference, but also just really good to understand what it is that everybody does. So you can go ahead and access that. And don't see any other questions. So we're going to go ahead and transition on with the agenda. Our next segment is using social media as part of your outreach. We have Regina Hackett with the Connecticut T2 Center, which is the Ltap in Connecticut, as well as Matt Carter from the University of Delaware and Delaware Ltap. So they are going to be sharing dropping some knowledge on you and sharing some of their experiences with using social media. So Regina, if you'd like to go first and share your screen.
Okay, can everyone see that?
We sure can.
Awesome, great. Welcome everyone to using social media as part of your outreach. As Mary said, I'm Regina Hackett. I'm a program assistant with the Connecticut Training Technical Assistance Center, also known as the Connecticut LTAP Center. So welcome. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about social media. Social media needs to be part of your communications toolkit. And when I say I am talking to our fellow LTAP centers, but I'm also going to hopefully give you some information so how you can help your local agencies make social media part of your communications toolkit. And these are just in these boxes here are just the topics I'm going to be touching upon today, from promoting your social media sites to your agencies, all the way to how you can support your agency sites, social media sites. So to get started, you don't need a communication specialist on staff to have a robust social media presence. And I'm going to use myself as an example. I am a program assistant, and under that title, I wear quite a few hats. I'm on the traffic signal circuit rider team. I'm on the training team, the editorial team. The list kind of goes on. Social media is just really a small part of what I do. And when I try to train our agencies on it, and I try to explain to them that you don't need a specialist dedicated to social media, it's what I do is something that an office assistant can do, as long as you're out there and getting your message out to their residents. And then also how to promote your social media sites to your agencies. We do this in so many ways, just to touch upon a few. One being, we do have a flyer that's called Keeping Connected with T2. It has our blog site, all of our social media sites, our e-newsletter links, and we include that in all of our workshop folders. We promote it at all of our workshops. And then in our monthly e-newsletter, I always include the share button. That way, if there's like an interesting article in there, or if we're highlighting a certain town, that town can just hit that share button and send it off and get the information out to their residents. And then I also include, our direct links to our Facebook and our Instagram. And I always ask people, like us, follow us, and just try to get the word out and get a lot more eyes on our sites, so that we in turn can help out local agencies with theirs. And so to educate your agencies on the benefits of social media, we got a lot of pushback. A lot of people are very social media nervous. So I asked actually Adam Howell of Cornell Local Roads to help me with a webinar that we put on for Connecticut residents called Social Media as Easy as 123. We're going to drop a link of the video of that webinar. It's only an hour long. Adam did such a fantastic job, and it has a lot of great information in that, and you're welcome to use it, share it, however you would like. And then also the New England APWA's Chapter Connects Planning for National Public Works Week and Beyond webinar. I actually presented at that webinar. And because of COVID this year, we were really heavy with the social media content and different ways that they can celebrate and honor themselves all through social media. And we put together a really great resource for agencies to use with links and such. And we're actually going to drop the video of that webinar along with the resource document in the chat box as well. And you're free to, again, use, share, and do what you like with it. And so this graphic, this is something I kind of learned from Adam when he was doing our social media webinar. And I asked this, what do we know? And this is basically the black and white stats on social media. And when I put these stats up there, it kind of, changes some people's minds. And the one thing that I want to really point out is down here with the 48%. Nearly 50% of adults in the United States, they get their news source from social media. So that's what I try to kind of explain to our agencies. You have a built-in free audience. So it's there for you. And when you show them numbers like that, it's kind of hard to argue with it. And so create content and research for your agency. Of course, I love posting all the great things that we do on in our center and promote our workshops and such. But then there's also things that come up that I put specifically up on our social media site so that our agencies can just click share and get that information out to their residents. And so we go through National Public Works Week, National Work Zone Awareness Week, holidays, and inclement weathers. And just a little, sample of each. There is a National Work Zone Awareness clearinghouse that puts out a lot of great information. So about a week or two before the event, I would put up over here, I got the Connecticut DOT mascot. I let them know when Go Orange Day is. I help them out with hashtags. Up here, the American Public Works Association for National Public Works Week. This year, they did this really great thing where they made a custom profile border to honor National Public Works Week. So we put the instructions up on our site, and I'm telling you, it's pretty heartwarming to see for a couple of weeks all the orange and black borders around people's people's profile pictures, kind of getting the word out. And then, for inclement weather, Connecticut Work Zone Safety is a DOT group that I actually use a lot of their content to share. We just had a heat wave not too long ago up in the Northeast. So, heat-related illnesses, kind of infograph. This one right here, I'm sure all Ltap centers know about when you see a snowplow. I know specifically our public works group, they don't need to see this, but I put it up there during snowstorms so they can share it with their residents, along with don't crowd the plow, that sort of thing. And then also for holidays, NHTSA always puts out really great infographics ahead of St. Patrick's Day and kind of like don't drink and drive. And again, I don't think this is content that our agencies need to see, but I put it up there so that they can share it with their residents and that they don't have to go looking for that. And so just to kind of bring this all together, how can you support your agency's social media sites? So what I do is I make sure that if a town has a new site up, I always like it, I always follow it. If they're doing something great, I try to share it. And really promote what they're doing. And over up here is New Milford Public Works. A couple years ago, they started putting in a roundabout, and of course, they got a lot of flack from the residents. But they did such a fantastic job on their social media site with letting them know where the project was, how things were going, doing drone pictures of what was happening, and then posting videos to their residents of how do you drive in a roundabout. And then over here, they actually shared one of our technical briefs that we publish regarding roundabouts in Connecticut. And they got that out to their residents, which was really nice. And then this year, because of COVID, the Public Works, National Public Works Week, some agencies and towns did a GoFundMe account for fill a Public Works truck food drive. So I posted it and, try to get them some more, more funds for their community. And then I just want to give a shout out to Morris in Connecticut. It's a little town, and what they're doing on their social media site, the pictures and how they honor their crews and everything. They just do such a great job. And just to kind of end things, I want to kind of explain. Sorry, I had to move the bar. This picture right here in the middle. Now, this is from South Windsor. It is a really gross picture, but right after lockdown happened, they posted this, and this is disinfectant wipes that are getting stuck in some pumps and all kinds of things. So they posted this picture out to their residents saying, hey, please stop doing this. They just wanted to educate their residents. Well, if you look down here at the red arrow, this post went viral. Over 4,000 engagements, 57,000 shares, and local, and actually, I think national media actually picked it up, but there was in print ads, television, and this was just one town wanting to post something to say, hey, to the residents, and look how many people they ended up educating by doing so. So it was a really successful post, as gross it is to look at, but this is proud. So that's what I have.
All right. Thank you very much, Regina. Next speaking is Matt Carter with the Delaware Ltap. Matthew?
Yeah. All right. Can you see that okay?
Sure can.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, everybody, today. And so I'm going to sort of pick up on what Regina was talking about and talk a little bit about how we take some of the stuff we do and put a little bit of levity into it in different ways. So, with the Delaware T-Squared Center, we've got sort of two primary ways that we do outreach or passive outreach, I guess is what I might call it. And one of those are our e-newsletters, and our sort of most recent sort of incarnation of that, like many others, has turned into this monthly e-newsletter that consists of anywhere from 4 to 6 articles, something like that. And so we've been doing that since August of 2019. So we've got a couple of years of that format under our belt. And then we began our Facebook page, our only social media presence, in September of 2018. And so we published about 530 posts to that in that couple of year time frame. I can show you examples of our newsletters. I can't show you examples of our Facebook page because we've been deplatformed, as it turns out. But that's a story for another day. And I'll just leave you to wonder about that. But by way of example of some of the things that we do, whether it's in our Facebook posts, at least historically, hopefully in the future, or our e-newsletter articles or other things we do, as Regina said, we, like many other centers, we use a lot of different material. Much of it we generate ourselves. I write the bulk of our content. There are a number of people in the Zoom call that know me and think that that's a horrible idea, and I shouldn't be allowed to talk to the public, and that's understandable. The good thing about that is I have Rusty Lee and Sandy Wolf that look at the material as I develop it, and occasionally they'll flag something where they think that perhaps I've reached a little too far in my humor attempts or what have you. But and so we make a good team in terms of developing those materials. But so whether we're borrowing that or generating that freshly or what have you, sometimes that stuff is engaging all by itself and it's great. Other times it needs a little bit of help. And so a lot of stuff we do is pretty good, but it can be a little bit dry. Just a hint, this center thing where you see the car bumper and the traffic calming devices in the pavement is seemingly the offending post on Facebook that is yet to be put out there. But one of the things we do is, so to sort of liven things up, is use themes. One of the themes that we use is we use Delaware Department of Transportation's Wally the Work Zone Warrior. There's a more than life-size version of Wally that makes the round in Delaware, and then there are these bobbleheads. And so Wally tends to follow me around a good bit, particularly on technical assistance visits. And so, you know, if we pop up in Fenwick Island, he might get a photo op on our Facebook. He can be seen helping us announce winners of registrations to our roadway management conference, shows up at conferences, does a little patriotic theme for us from time to time. Keith Knapp is demonstrating while he even pops up out that way a bit. And to that very point, he even is a regular on training resources work group calls where and other places that Steve Strength pops up from Louisiana. So he's sort of made the rounds, and we've turned him into a little bit of a meme or a theme or whatever you want to think of. We even like to, when he's on the side of DelDOT's new self-driving shuttle, we like to suck up to DelDOT a little bit and highlight it there. And even when he's at the head of the Chesapeake Bay, he'd rather be in a work zone. So, you know, we use him as sort of a link into things that, you know, sort of is instantly recognizable. And that's been a lot of fun for us. Another sort of way that we use humor is to sort of, you know, bring out our inner nerds. And pie is just the gift that never stops giving. And we've pretty well beat this horse to death to the point that now we're sort of segueing out to tau. You know, if you're not familiar with tau, that's twice pi, 6.28. So we get to celebrate it not just in March, but also in June. And so sooner or later, we'll have to stop beating that horse, but probably not too soon. And then there are other days where we don't even pretend, right? We don't, I can't even come up with a linkage to transportation, and we just have a little bit of fun. And we'll celebrate just about any made up national holiday, and there's tons of them. They just make them up like crazy. And some of them ring true. I'm a particular fan of Arbor Day, from when Sally said that's when all the ships come sailing into the arbor. But certainly National Chili Dog Day is a personal favorite as well. So we go through and we have fun with that, basically just to remind our audience that, we're people too. We may be nerdy, but we're people too. And we like to have fun, and not everything has to be so terribly serious, but we do try to balance it out as much as we can. In brief, I guess we benefit from the fact that I'm pretty easily amused. This is one of, again, I just can't get away from it. This is my favorite pie sort of meme. And if you understand that, you're a nerd like me. So anyway, that's what I've got. That's just some of the ways that we sort of lighten it up in Delaware.
Very nice. Thanks, Matt. All right, we're running just about on time, but I'm just looking. We do have a question for both speakers. Do you have dedicated editors or social media staff, or are they multitasking staff? If either one of you wants to handle that.
In Delaware, I generate the bulk of the material, but we do get sort of guest authors sometimes for our newsletters, and Rusty and Sandy are sort of always going behind me and sort of reviewing, editing, and looking out for any international incidents that I might otherwise create.
Gotcha. How about you, Reg?
Well, here in Connecticut, I had said before, we don't have someone dedicated just to social media. We do have a resource, a library technician on staff that helps me with like our e-newsletter and such. But really, we don't have editors for our social media, just our newsletter and our tech briefs. But there's we don't have a communication specialist on staff.
All right. All right. We are right on time. So thank you both very much. And thank you, David, for your time this afternoon / this morning, depending on where you're joining us from. I'm going to transition this over to Kim, and she's going to introduce our next segment with the breakout groups and some networking. Kim?
All right, wonderful. Well, so far I've learned, I'm excited it's mac and cheese day. So now Keith's got me craving mac and cheese. So that's more exciting than Shark Awareness Day. So as we go into our breakout sessions, just a couple tips and things that I would like to mention, and a couple things we'd like you to do. So the breakout groups, you're going to be in a group of about 12 of your peers. Know that if you accidentally leave the group, you probably will end up back in the main room. We will be monitoring that, and we'll try to get you back into the breakout group, but we don't have any guarantees. So watch what buttons you push. The moderators are going to ask you guys, if you can, to put your cameras on. And again, we have some new folks. We actually have a couple people who have only been at their center for a week. So welcome to our new Colorado Ltap staff. We're so excited to have you guys. And again, if when you're in the breakout groups and you're a newer person, feel free to ask questions. Each moderator is going to start with one designated question. They have a couple others to choose from, but again, you all can bring up your own topics. Last year, we only had, I think, 20 minutes for this. And what we heard was, hey, we want more time to be able to interact with our peers and discuss these things. So we are going to come back at the end, and each group is going to share just a couple aha moments and things that you learned. And my last thing before we turn you loose is, I know we have a lot of people like myself who are not shy in Ltap, and we could talk to the wall all day. Please, please, please speak in sentences, not paragraphs, because we want everyone in your groups to have a chance to interact and share. So with that, Mary, put us in our groups.
See y'all on the other side.
Can you still hear me, Mary?
I can. I'm moving you. I see
that I don't press a wrong button here, because it looks like you and Rusty and I have power.
I did not. Right. So it should be the three of us here, and then you should be able to, when you go into breakout rooms down at the bottom,
just hit the join button.
Hit the join, and then you'll leave the room, hit the join of another, so on and so forth. Make sense?
Yeah. So I'll check. Oh, I didn't realize Joe had joined us.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. By the way, I think
Yeah, Joe, Trinette, and Danielle are all here.
Awesome. Awesome. I think Regina would do a great job, if not the Seattle conference, the Ohio conference.
Oh yeah.
If it's in your
Wasn't she awesome? So nervous though. She's probably puking this morning.
I was laughing there because I was like, she was talking fast.
She's like, I feel like I just ran a marathon. She's texting.
She did fabulous.
Like with a lot of material. She did a 30-minute to our whole New England chapter APWA. She did a 45 minute. Hold on.
All right, I'm going to check in on my first room.
Okay.
Me too. I'm going wandering.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you guys. I know Rusty and I were popping into some various sessions and it sounded like you all had some great conversations going on. So thank you to each of the moderators and thank you guys for sharing. And what we'd like to do now is take about, looks like we probably have about 12 minutes left for each of the moderators to share, just one or two things that came out of your group. Feel free to take up to, 2 minutes. And this way, hopefully we get some different feedback, even if we weren't in that session. So Callie, can we start with you?
Absolutely. So for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Callie Thomas and French, and I am the program manager in New Mexico and the regional rep for the South Central region. So I was lucky enough to speak with Heath from Missouri, Heather from Colorado, Randy from Nevada, Lisa from Connecticut, Denise from North Dakota, Leo from Louisiana, Laura from Arkansas, Shauna from Montana, and we had Danielle from FHWA and Holly from Vermont. So we had a wide range of individuals who were in our group from all over the country and with a lot of different experiences. Our first question regarded what individuals were most proud of in their first year. And across the board, it really seemed that everyone in our group was proud of the work that they have done, pivoting from in-person courses to online courses. And then once again, pivoting back out of that. Since COVID began, we all have had to do a lot of changes, as I'm sure everyone in the Ltap organization has had to do, but really excited about the flexibility that they've had in their organizations and the way that they've responded to the challenging times that they've had in the last year. Additionally, some of them agencies created new programming, such as a new safety circuit rider programs, received grant funding from STIC, and just really provided a lot of new opportunities for the locals in their state. We also discussed what courses were most prominent and provided across these different states. Excavation and trenching was one that was really popular, and that was through the ARTBA. So if anyone hasn't reached out to them and Bruce Drews, that's an opportunity for you to have that training for free. And they're a wonderful organization to work with. And Kim mentioned that they had one planned, but wound up doing many more because of how well it was received. Flagger is a course that's really popular, and a lot of people found innovative ways to provide that course even in an online environment. And then courses that really go to show how different all of our agencies are in New Mexico. We don't really do a lot of snow and ice training, but that's a training that was really popular in many of the other states, as well as drainage courses and chainsaw courses. And then the last question that we discussed was what courses are difficult for individuals to find trainers for? A lot of the soft skill courses aren't something that our agencies focus on, but they are so important to the success of these different organizations. So the soft skills, HR, basic math courses. And then we talked about the difficulties of DOTs outsourcing and going through the bidding process to provide new trainers for their agencies. So as a university LTAP, that's something that isn't something we experience. So it goes to show how different all of our organizations are. We also had Danielle Mathis-Lee in our group, and she mentioned that very soon they will be providing a FHWA trainer list to the NLTAPA organization, which will provide the trainer and information for those trainers and the courses that they provide at no cost to the NLTAPA. So that's something to be on the lookout for. And other than that, it was just great to see smiling faces and to meet people from states that I haven't had the opportunity yet. We also had Heather from Colorado, who is new to NLTAPA, so welcome, and welcome to the South Central region as well. Or no, you're not in the South Central region. Oh gosh, I'm just trying to claim you. Never mind. But thank you all for participating, and I'll turn it back over to you, Kim and Mary.
All right. Thank you so much, Callie. It sounds like you guys had great conversation. And for those of you newer to LTAP, this is what it's all about. We love sharing. You've never met such a sharing group. I'm going to turn it over to Megan.
Make sure I'm off mute.
Yeah.
So I have to say we had one of the best groups because we had a wide range between 1 year experience all the way up to 20 years experience. So we had a lot of different varieties going on. Like Callie, we talked about pretty much the same questions. the biggest thing that we pulled from what you're most proud of is just how close and how helpful everyone in Ltap has been. Not that we're always not helpful, but it just seemed like as soon as COVID hit, everyone was just in this panic of like, oh my gosh, how do we put classes online? How do we get materials out to people? And everyone just came together and was willing to share whole programs and instructors and just so willing to bend over backwards to help other centers. So everyone was really proud of that. We also talked about some of the most popular classes. Work Zone, as always, huge class. Flagger, regardless of if it was in person or virtual, seemed to be the most popular. Another one that I thought was interesting, just because I had not heard of it before, was the game of logging. So for me, it kind of relates back to a little bit of a chainsaw class. So I thought that was really interesting and something that I'm definitely going to encourage our center to look at. And then Donna brought up a great point about drones. She got a grant to get some drones because that seems to be pretty popular here in Kentucky. A lot of our maintenance barns are using that to survey their lands. So I thought that was really interesting when she said that. So look into that grant about how to get drones for a class to bring participants in. A lot of great discussion.
Excellent, excellent. Courtney?
Yes, okay, I'm going to brag on my group too. We were great. We had some new people, and we even have our current president in my group.
Woohoo!
Experience.
Lame duck, lame duck.
Oh, true. 6 more days, right? So we went over 3 questions. Our first questions was, what are some resources for finding course instructors, particularly for maintenance topics? We had a variety of answers. One was that they use a partner association to get maintenance instructors. Somebody, I think Callie, you mentioned this class is going to do the instructor database. So that came up in our discussion too. It also came up, I guess, an FHWA program, the match program. It's fairly new, 6 weeks, something like that, where the FHWA is setting up partnerships like mentor-mentee things. And I think that'll be beneficial in some way. Maybe someone else can fill us in on that. And then another person said they try to use in-house instructors and partner with their DOT, get APWA instructors, retired DOT instructors, or DOTD, Louisiana DOT for everyone else. And then also there's, the whole virtual thing kind of makes instructors a little more accessible as well. And our group also offered out their instructors to other people. So if you're looking for instructors, come to our group. The next question was the Road Scholar. Do you have a Road Scholar program? Are there required classes and electives? And if you have both, how do you determine what's required versus an elective? And I would say half of our group had Road Scholar programs. Some of them had very clear requirements, some didn't. Some it was an hours type thing. Some it was, these are your requireds. And then one in Minnesota, that was an interesting one. I had not heard of that. There's like 2 different tracks in their program. One was a maintenance and operations track, and that has its own requirements. And then the other was a leadership track. So, and they're even considering a third. I won't announce that one to everyone, but they're considering a third. But there's a lot of discussions right now. Some people are revamping and redesigning their programs, looking at what's required, what's not, what needs to be offered, what doesn't. So, and then our last question was the group choice question, and everybody wanted to know, what are we doing post-COVID? Are we post? I don't know if we're post-COVID. What are we doing? And we had a variety of answers. One group said that they were doing one course at a time. They were trying to decide how that was going to go virtual or in person, one course at a time. They're going to look at a benefit cost analysis type thing, look to see who's hosting, who's attending, kind of analyze based on each event. Another said that their classes already had been designed to be virtual, so those were going to continue. Another group said they're looking at money. How much does it cost for these agencies to travel? Can they even travel yet? Do they still have restrictions? Someone said they were going to keep both. And then other groups said they're going to start in August, including Louisiana. We're starting in August. Oh, and then I liked this one. They're going to do both. They're going to have 2 classes that are in person every time and then 1 virtual every time. And then we also had some people saying they would do hybrid and some saying they would not do hybrid. So it's kind of all over the place, which is what I expected from that. So.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Melissa Foley.
Ma'am, so this is a competition, huh? Between groups?
It is not a competition. We're all winners.
I'm making it one. I had Joe Conway in our group. So we had someone who'd only been around 2 weeks, fantastic, and someone who'd been there 30 plus years. So quite the range. And we got some really good information. It was a fun discussion amidst the thunderstorm here in New York. But one of the things I was most interested in was databases or whatever people are using to keep track of maybe all their audience or part of their audience. There's all kinds of different sizes. So what we found were people who had a couple different methods of keeping track, one for workshops, one for addresses. We've got one here in New York that does it all. In Kentucky, I'm quite impressed. They've got about 600 people that they keep track of and offer workshops to, and they, whenever there's election, they go through all 600 and confirm that they have the correct information. So that's great. The other thing that came up that was particularly interesting was actually Joe was talking about when they do some sort of mailings or announcements, their website gets a lot more hits than usual. So that's sort of the electronic side of getting people's attention. But on the other hand, again, this is Kentucky, although everyone had great input, when they sent out a paper announcement and got a big uptick in people signing up. So, you know, it's just all over the board. There's so many different ways to contact everyone and get the word out. And that was it.
All right. Wonderful. Wonderful. Paul?
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember all the names of the people that were in our group. I apologize for that. Callie set the bar. It was like, good Lord, so we tackled actually 3 different questions or 3 or 4 from that. And I think the consensus of the group would be we didn't have enough time. The tech assistance question and how did you pull that off and whatever. Melissa, I believe it was Melissa out of Connecticut. And she was saying that, you know, look, here's the protocols. This is what we're going to use when we go out into the field, and you're going to agree to that. You're going to abide by that, or, you know, I guess she's, you know, pretty much we're not going, you know, type of thing. But the rest of them were phone, email type of tech assistance. But we did have some, you know, that still did tech out into the field and with the protocols there. So the other question that we tackled really was about instructors and maybe courses or things that you struggled with. And the consensus of the group was heavy equipment operator instructors. And we remember we were talking about D. Hatfield out in Utah, and he was just this great heavy equipment guy. I mean, you know, you knew that he had done it, and LTAP centers don't have a lot of those. And I don't know of many LTAPs that have that equipment instructor that's on hand, that heavy equipment instructor. And so it made it a little more difficult, but it does have some challenges. We did at least recognize that. There were some ideas. I think Dina out of Louisiana, no, maybe Kate was talking about some of their operators that they had maybe that had retired or whatever, but about the time they got them started, then COVID hit. And so then we were kind of back to square one with that. The other question that we tackled, or one of the other ones, was managing burnout. And this was, it wasn't just burnout, but it was just the overall gloom and doom of the universal environment that we had to live in. And it was interesting that, you know, people brought up the fact that we have an employee assistance program, you know, at pretty much everywhere that we work, that, you know, things are just getting to that point that that's somebody else that you can turn to. We also talked about stress management. Matt Enders had a great idea. Just take your vacation, you know, and that's true. Just take a week off and just sit back and look at the big picture. I think we're all important. We had some really great input when it came to that. And then we had just started talking about how we were going to go back and whether that would be live, hybrid, or virtual or whatever. And it seemed like the consensus of the group is that it would be some form of all of it, some virtual, some hybrid, and some in person. So that's about it from the number one group.
Well, excellent, excellent, guys. And last but not least, Catherine.
Yeah, same here. When I heard Caleb listing all the names, I was like, really? But we had Delaware, Arizona, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Connecticut, Maine, New York, Iowa, and then Minnesota.
Woohoo!
He only got to one question. I'm really impressed with you guys getting through so many questions. But ours was, how do you envision your training program changing, or what changes have you already made? And pretty much the consensus was they implemented or are keeping some form of virtual in their programming moving forward. Some are going to do more, some will do less, but just that balancing act of what's best for your locals, for your instructors. One of the things that is more difficult if you're trying to schedule is finding locations that are willing to book you in the future due to the hesitancy of what may or may not look like in the fall. So they just don't want to commit too early and then have to cancel or backpedal later on. But yeah, overall it was some type of combination of in-person, hybrid, virtual, online courses moving forward from here.
Excellent, excellent. And I know, Catherine, I'm not surprised that that topic took your whole half hour, because just based on all the, the comments that we've had on Google Groups with that question, I think it's one that, is important that we're all looking into. So one of the things that we're going to ask you guys on the evaluation are if there are any of these topics that you would like to see expanded out. So maybe in a lunch and learn sort of format. And it sounds like maybe next year we need to, make this even a little longer. Although I will say the breakouts seem to work better in the virtual format than they do in person, because we never have enough room. And so we're always talking over each other. So we're going to have to figure out how to do that. But thank you, everyone. And with that, we're going to go into our next session, which is on the road again. And that's going to be Catherine and Kate. So Catherine is from Minnesota, Ltap, and Kate is from the North Carolina Ltap. And they're going to talk about, how do we get back into that offering in-person training and kind of that mindset and what items we need. So
before
Mary,
we get started, Callie, did you have something to take to the group?
I did. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
Shauna Page from Montana had to leave the group really quickly. Her office was being evacuated by a wildfire that was quickly approaching. So just wanted to have everyone send them, everyone in Montana, their thoughts and prayers and best wishes. They were very invested in the conversation and were ripped away from it. So thank you for letting me say that, and thank you all. Please stay safe.
Yeah, thank you so much for telling us that, Callie. It's funny. Shauna's kind of my Ltap conference buddy. We always get together. I'm so glad you told us that.
It's not the office that's threatened. It's actually her home.
Oh.
She works out of her home, and she's had to be evacuated. So. Yeah, keep her in your prayers.
Wow.
And
yeah.
They've moved all the animals. They've moved all the documents. It's literally right in her backyard, right within a mile of her house, I think. So.
Thank you for that information. I appreciate that, Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Well, big topic there, but we'll switch gears a little bit. So I think this was clearly a pretty big topic for the groups. On the road again, what are you doing? So Catherine, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Yeah, sure will. So hello, everyone. Catherine Stanley here with the Minnesota Ltap Center. So I've been, I guess, a little over 3 years, I've been part of the Ltap community. And I'm the program coordinator.
Great. It's been about 3 years for me too. I'm Kate Davison at the North Carolina Ltap. And if anyone hasn't heard yet, I think it'll be announced next week at the NLTAP, but Linda Collier, who a lot of people knew, she was involved with Ltap for 15 years or so. She has retired, so congrats to Linda. And I have moved up into her position as assistant director. So I think we were going to talk a little bit about very quickly what we were going to do. But I also, since Stephanie from Massachusetts did send out that really nice roundup of what other groups are doing, I thought I'd go over what the results were from that real quickly. She had 30 people respond. She had 12 people say they were not doing any in-person as of yet. 14 people say yes, they were doing in-person, and 4 people said they were doing partial in-person, so perhaps outdoor only. For North Carolina, we're staying real flexible. We are still doing online, and we have 3 classes in person scheduled in September that will bring people together in Raleigh, multiple agencies together, and we've continued to do agency only training in person throughout pretty much since like last summer.
Yep, and same with Minnesota, we are doing a combination of in-person and virtual in the fall. And we've been virtual or online exclusively all of last year and then up to this point. So it's just been working really well for our area. But again, we are going to start, I guess our first class, September 13th, fingers crossed it happens, is in person up in northern Minnesota.
Yeah, great. So we wanted to talk a little bit about what our strategies were and perhaps provide this presentation for you guys when you start developing your strategies and what all you need to think about as well. So of course, balancing customer needs and wants was really huge. We also are getting lots of requests for in-person. We've definitely seen our agency only requests ramp up. In fact, we've got 3 2 weeks. No, we have 3 2 weeks from now, and then like another 4 a couple weeks later. What about you for balancing customer needs and wants, Catherine?
Yep. So for us too, it's the same. We've actually had high engagement throughout the whole last 15 months. I know some centers it's kind of started to wane earlier, late 2020, but ours remained very high engagement. So we want to make sure that we're offering a virtual option for those agencies that are just really liking this format where all of their employees can attend. And we keep it short right at the beginning of the day at 7:30. They can attend and then they can go about the rest of their day doing their job. And then we also make sure we need to have the in-person to help balance out the areas that they just don't have the technology to be fully engaged online or virtually. So there's agencies that have one computer with no microphone. They're lucky to have speakers. So we just need to make sure that we're considerate for their accessibility to technology, building space. Not every agency has space for people just to sit together. And then obviously the location, where are these trainings that needed? The northernmost part of our state is International Falls, which you actually have to leave US, go into Canada to get to it. And they've actually attended our classes this past year and they haven't been before for obvious reasons. So we have to make sure that we balance the most northern, most remote parts of our state with the most populous areas that that also need the same training.
We found the same thing, that we were getting a lot of clients that we'd never seen before in our classes were able to attend the virtual classes, especially managers who previously couldn't take a full day to be paid for class. We delivered our classes in 2 to 3 hour segments over 2 to 3 days, almost all of our classes. And so they were able to take 2 to 3 hours out of their day instead of take a whole day away from the office. And that really, we received feedback that that was very popular among managers. I think balancing course needs, one of the things for us switching back to in-person in the fall is there were some classes we simply could not deliver online. So our trenching competent person, our chainsaw safety, and our concrete what, when, and how, that's a really easy way if you're trying to ease yourself back in, say, what didn't I do this past year? And put those at the top of your list. It was really a no-brainer for us to schedule those 3 classes right away.
And the other point of balancing your course needs are the instructors. So not all of your instructors are ready to go in person. So you have to be able to have that conversation with them to say, are you comfortable with this? What can we do to help you? Should we stay virtually? Or is there some courses you teach that you can do outside? And just work with them to make sure that everyone is safe and comfortable with the decisions moving forward. And it's a joint decision and not just you're doing this because it's also their course. So it's, again, what's your strategy? Balancing your customer needs and also balancing your course needs.
Yeah, absolutely. So working with the resources you've got, it might seem a little bit daunting to switch back to in-person. Honestly, it felt a little bit daunting for me switching online and now having to go back to in-person. what paperwork do my people need to sign? What are the rules going to be come September? Do I need to provide masks? Are we going to be requiring masks? Are we going to be requiring distance? All of these different issues, you've got to kind of think through methodically. So Catherine and I had a conversation earlier, and one of the things we talked about is how important it is to sort of just connect with those other training and event providers in your area and inside your organization. If somebody else has already developed that paperwork for people to agree to sign, just use that same paperwork. You don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time.
Yep, and here at the University of Minnesota, we have a group called Event Circle, and it's a group where they meet monthly and they share information. They're from across the system doing different types of events. So we got engaged with them, even if you don't attend every month, but it's just nice to be on the email chain, just like with the sending an Ltap Google email out, where everyone is sharing resources. And now this worked for us. This, here's an idea, or have you thought of this? Just it brings up different questions that you wouldn't know necessarily without going through it. So again, leverage different training providers in your area. DOTs probably have something similar. Connect with the STEM group, people who do outreach events, and then also the facilities you're at. I know Kate was saying that they have a center. They actually have a training room at their facility, so that's what they use. We do not, so we rely heavily on our local agencies to help staff or provide the space for us.
Yeah, if you've got a facility, also kind of a no-brainer to go ahead and start out your first in-person classes in that room that you control. Where, I can get into that room whenever I need to. I can figure out if I can open windows ahead of time. I actually don't think I can, which is a little bit of a bummer. But just leverage the pieces that you already have that maybe you haven't been thinking about, this past year.
And then next is hurdles. There's something we're always going to encounter, right, when we're trying to start things up again. One is specific to each local agency. So you have to consider, are employees ready for in-person, or do they need more options for all staff? Just because some people are ready doesn't mean they all are, right? Are there travel restrictions for some agencies? Larger ones might have more restrictions in place than smaller agencies. Maybe training budgets have been hit. So these are all questions to consider and even ask your locals if these are barriers to attending in person or virtual options.
Yeah, for us, one of the biggest ways that we are dealing with these hurdles is just keeping in mind all of that flexibility that we started incorporating in our program doesn't have to go away. I was so uncomfortable about canceling classes, in-person classes, March 2020. I felt honestly kind of like I was failing my locals a little bit because I had to cancel classes on them and refund all this money. But they were completely open to it. They were going through the same challenges. And so just keeping that flexibility, how far in advance to plan? I have 3 in-person classes scheduled, and that is it, because I'm just going to wait. Once we get closer, I'm going to see, are the employees ready to go in person? Do they sign up? And that will help inform me. You don't have to go ahead and switch totally in person. You can keep that flexibility and stay nimble and on your feet and say, okay, well, I can do this one in person, but let's just keep all of these online options still available to us.
And that's why in Minnesota, we're making sure we have one virtual session for each workshop, because I'm curious to know too, what are people gravitating towards? So we make sure that even if all your staff aren't comfortable in person, you can have that virtual option to fall back on.
Yeah, I thought that was really great data to be collecting to see what's getting signed up for and what platform. And so maybe eventually you say, okay, people don't like WorkZone online. I'll keep doing that in person. But these soft skills classes, my ethics in public works, I suspect that that's going to have much higher engagement online than the in-person classes. So that's such a great thing that Minnesota is doing. And I think I'm going to copy it once we have a few more in-person classes.
And then finally, opportunities for change. We are changing our pricing structure. So because we used to have it tiered based on your category, but now it's just like in person, $75, online, virtual, $45. We're keeping it very simple. You get some food at the in-person, so you get, so you have to charge a little bit more. Format of the classes, you know, we broke up some of our topics into shorter virtual workshops or webinars. And we've also piloted new ideas. So one of our instructors came to us, he's like, I want to incorporate this into my class, but I want to see if they really want it first. So we did a webinar and it turned out, yes, they want that incorporated. And our in-person also, we're going to make more interactive than virtual because we want to we need to make it a little bit more than you can just do it online.
Yeah, and I think that even if you've been doing online one way, you don't have to keep doing the online in that same way. So we have been doing these 2 to 3 hour segments, but when we go back in person, we might see if people are interested in attending an all day webinar virtually by recording it and letting them attend an in-person class virtually. You can continue investing in these opportunities for change as you go. Again, we've kind of learned about that flexibility. I think our clients, we didn't expect our clients to want to go to online classes, and they really embraced it wholeheartedly. You know, some people we haven't seen for a year and we miss them and we reach out to them. Online doesn't work for them, so we know we're going to want to go back to in-person some, but we want to keep going with these new clients that we've brought in. We don't want to lose them by switching back to all in person. I think locations is going to be a really big issue and also a big opportunity for change. If you're having trouble finding a location, the places that you used to go aren't open yet, you can't get in there yet. What a great time to find new locations, to reach out to new people. There's a lot of resources at your local agencies, maybe in their Parks and Rec department. We sometimes end up in City Hall in conference rooms when we do classes. So while it may seem like, oh gosh, I can't go to the place I like to go, maybe it's actually a place, an ability for you to find a new place and then meet new people and make new connections for your group.
Yep. And then finally, online training, which is making it another option for locals to use for new hires. They need to get them trained. Oh wait, you already had this asphalt pavement, workshop already this year. You have the opportunity to train new hires right away on some skills. Slower days here in Minnesota when it's raining, we get an uptick. Well, obviously not snow days because they're out plowing. On those slower days in general, the supervisors are always looking for something to keep them busy when they're not being busy. So we want to make sure that we have some online training resources available for them to use throughout the whole year.
Yeah, we get a lot of requests for, that issue. Do you have a flagger class available? We just hired 7 new people. And we go, oh no, our flagger class just happened last week. I'm so sorry. So that on demand can really be a big opportunity there. And that's the end. Do we have any questions?
I did see in the chat, Stephen Strength asked, what new audiences did you reach during virtual and what audiences were not able to do virtual?
So the audiences that weren't able to do virtual that I saw were my smaller agencies, that it's a big ask to send, maybe they have 2 people in their public works department and maybe they can get away for a day with lots of planning, but virtual, they were just going to be constantly pulled in other directions if they were trying to attend something online because there's only one person. But for us, the new people that we saw, we actually got on our North Carolina town planners listserv. And so we've had a lot of town planners attend our classes where we've never really seen them. And I think it's a great opportunity, like when we had a planner attend our drainage class and they could actually experience what the maintenance issues are. That was really beneficial to them, I think. I think also, this is not a job category, but introverts. really appreciate the online. I had early on, I had a specific evaluation that said, I really appreciated the opportunity to ask questions in the chat because I didn't feel like I was interrupting the instructor by asking a question. And I thought that was a really nice point. I'm never afraid to interrupt anyone, but I hadn't thought about people who maybe are and feel like they can't ask the question out loud. The chat was a much more accessible way for them to do so.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I have to agree with us too. We had a lot of entire maintenance departments attending classes. So they'll one person register and then they would have a room of 30 people sitting there watching together and talking. You can see them interacting. And so that was nice because usually we only get a couple, 2, 3, maybe at most, we're lucky. And one of the biggest things was we had agencies still able to attend when it was snowing out. So they were like, it's snowing today, but we can attend because we're not plowing for another couple hours. Where before the whole class would be not showing up because it's snowing. And obviously the people who weren't able to attend just didn't have the technology or the bandwidth. There's parts that are just too remote for the bandwidth technology that's currently out there, the infrastructure to be able to carry a clear signal. Unless they're savvy and they download the app to their phone, then they can get a good signal. But
that was something that we didn't talk about, but there was so much more attendance by phone and by tablet than I expected. All of my troubleshooting knowledge was based off of a computer because that's what I had. And I did not realize how many people would be joining our classes from inside trucks. Mm-hmm. I don't know about you all, but I had like 2 or 3 people, work-zone supervisor in a truck on site. And it was just really nice for them to be able to be on site and, not miss out on managing the site, but still be able to go to class.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, we're going to transition to our final segment of the day. Megan with the Nebraska LTAP is going to talk to us a little bit about the ups and downs of virtual advisory board meetings. Megan?
Okay, I'm pulling up my screen. Okay. We're having a weather event and my connection's a little sketchy, so I'm going to apologize for not turning on my camera. I will also apologize. The chicken in my kitchen is very loud right now. We are getting ready for county fair at our house. So in Nebraska, we had, of course, we had advisory board meetings like many of you did. I think it's important to start with our advisory board structure is maybe a little unique to us. When our current director, Mitch Dote, came on board a couple of years ago, he inherited an advisory board that had everybody in the kitchen sink. Anybody who was an important contact or a relationship or a contract or something somehow ended up on the advisory board. And so he took some time to really consciously go through and look at what we needed an advisory board for and who the best voices were to have on that board. And we actually ended up with a board that is divided into 3 subgroups. So we have an executive board, a planning group, and an implementation team. So the executive group typically meets annually. It includes the really big picture people. So our FHWA division administrator, the code number 2 people at NDOT, our dean, people that have director in their title. They really focus on bigger visioning types of things. They also focus a lot on kind of the broad scope of the budget because they're our funders. They ended up meeting via email in 2021. And I'm going to circle back and explain that because they're the third part in the sequence, but the top group on the list. Our second group, our programming group, they really focus on the types of courses and programs and workshops we offer, how we deliver them, what kind of our strategic areas are we meeting our local client needs? So we have 3 representatives who are with counties, 3 with municipalities, the whole implementation team, and then we have 1 or more additional NDOT representatives who are usually in more specific types of roles. Like right now we have someone from the traffic engineering division because we do a lot of roadway safety types of things. So they meet to really evaluate our program offerings and help us set more specific priorities for the coming year. They also serve as liaisons through, for example, the County Highway Superintendents Association. If there's a member who feels more comfortable reaching out to one of them instead of one of us, they serve that role as well. We did meet by Zoom. And then we have a third group who is our implementation team. And they really look at daily operation kinds of things. Are we on track with the calendar? Is the budget where we thought it would be? We submitted the reimbursement paperwork for this class 6 weeks ago, but we haven't heard anything about it yet. Can we follow up on that particular situation? Kinds of questions. They meet monthly and have throughout the process as needed. I think they've probably canceled a few meetings. So that transitioned to Zoom pretty easily. It's a very small group. It's a representative from our FHWA division office, the leader of the professional development and internal training group at NDOT, and our NDOT contract liaison. So I want to back up to more our chronological sequence of how our year works. So before we have a formal plan for the executive team to approve and evolve into a contract, we meet with the programming team. It happened to work out that when we needed to have this meeting this year, Mitch was on medical leave, so I covered facilitating this meeting along with Phyllis and Nicole from our staff as well. And there were 3 things that we did that really made it work. It was a nice engaging meeting. Everybody participated in multiple discussion points. I think part of that contributing factor was the condition of our LTAP. We're very stable right now. We have a developed plan that we're working towards. And so really we just needed them to acknowledge that the path that we set forth a couple of years ago and we've been working on is still the path that we should be on. So we didn't have any big questions. We didn't have big controversies. We didn't need to brainstorm a lot of stuff. We just needed to confirm big picture things and then focus on a few details here and there. So we really were able to focus on essential tasks at the meeting. We didn't have a long agenda. We only planned to meet for 2 hours and we actually didn't even use all of that time. I also think the group makeup was important. We had the right number of people. So 10 people on a Zoom call works if we need discussion. 40 people on a Zoom call when we need discussion and input from everybody is a little bit harder. So the fact that we had a nice sized group, I wouldn't say everyone in the group knew everyone else, but everyone in the group knew at least 1 or 2 other people. So there was already some comfort level there and willingness to participate. And we had some people that are happy to talk. Bruce always comes to mind. He's one of our county guys. And if Bruce has something to say, Bruce is going to say it. We had some other people who did participate more in the chat box. And so we were able to capture lots of different perspectives. As a facilitator too, I think it was important if there was a voice that we hadn't heard from in a few minutes to specifically call on that person. And we have relationships with all the people on the advisory board or in this group. So it was comfortable for us to do that. So if Barb Keegan from Box Butte County she's a little bit more softer spoken. If she hadn't said anything in the last 10 minutes, it was very comfortable to say, hey, Barb, what do you think about this? And encourage her participation. So really how we set up the meeting and what we needed out of it made it work well in Zoom. I think if we needed more brainstorming or more open-ended discussion, or if we had a bigger group, the breakout rooms could have been effective, but we didn't really need them for this particular situation. So once we'd had this meeting and we'd summarized the notes from it, then Mitch was able to finalize his report and submit that via email to that executive board. And they had the option to meet and schedule a Zoom, but decided there weren't any really looming issues that needed a face-to-face or a Zoom-to-Zoom conversation. And so they were able to have their brief discussion via email this year. So obviously it will be nice next year to be able to bring some of those groups together. Although, like has been mentioned in the previous session, like Barb is 436 miles from Lincoln. And so for someone to have to drive for a chunk of a day to participate in a 2-hour meeting to then drive a chunk of a day back puts a lot of onus on her. So in order to have statewide representation, continuing to have a Zoom option or to have the meeting via Zoom may be something that we consider long-term, just to make it more accessible for anyone who is elected to participate. For the executive group, again, those are all people with very busy calendars and very packed schedules. So finding a time that works for them is often difficult. Time for them to log on for an hour meeting might be easier than time for them to commit to an hour meeting with travel time, even if it's just across town. So I think that's something we'll continue to look at as we get ready for next year's advisory board meetings. It helps that our center's in a position where, again, we don't have a lot of conflict or a lot of controversy or anything that might make an advisory board meeting a little bit longer or more contentious than what ours are at this time. I don't really have anything else. If anybody has any questions, we're a little bit over time, I think, so I don't want to keep you unnecessarily.
Thank you for sharing that, Megan. Yeah, I think again, this is another topic that we could definitely delve more into. I know we asked our board, kind of what their preference was, and I figured they would say, "Oh yeah, let's keep meeting virtually." And they were like, "No, we want to get back in person, or maybe only do virtual once a year." So my suggestion would be check with your board and see what works best. And Megan, you brought up a lot of great points, so thank you for that.
I think by now too, people either know if they're into the virtual thing or not.
Yeah,
like, they're pretty opinionated.
Yep, that is for sure. Well, Mary has loaded in the chat box copies of the presentations, I believe. We're also going to be emailing this information out. We do have a link to the evaluation form. Seriously, this should take you no more than 4 minutes. And that's assuming you answer, every single question. But we do appreciate your feedback. So let us know, if you like this, what worked for you. And again, if there are other topics that you would like us to do a lunch and learn on so that we can spend a little more time on that, that's something that our professional development work group can look at. So it's great seeing everyone. We are running out of time or have ran out of time, but please click on that link, and thank you all for attending and participating, and stay safe out there.
Yeah, and thank you so much to our professional development work group moderators. You all did a great job. Sounds like those conversations went really well. A lot of opportunity to learn from each other. And just a shameless plug for the professional development work group. You got to see how cool we are. So join us. We would love to have you. We have a lot of fun. We do a lot of good stuff. And the more people we have, the more we can do for you all. So check us out. Get in touch.
And why it's not our work group, don't forget the poster sessions this evening. I'm not even going to bother to attempt to tell you what time, because Lord knows I barely know Eastern time. But those are this evening. So check those out.
That's right. All right. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you all so much.
You're welcome.
This is where we get to see the people who maybe popped out for a minute or 20.
I'm going to put a couple in the waiting room. Oops, no, I don't want to do that.
No, but I think that went well.
Yeah, I do too. I think that went really well.
What'd you think, Paul?
I thought it did. I thought it was great. You know, it's one of those things where I wish it was longer. Now that you look back, it's like, wow, that time really flew by, you know.
It is, yeah.
The other thing too that I try to continually learn from some of this is that these breakout rooms, especially the virtual type breakout rooms, one is, you know, the moderator is key, but other is that it's the small group, you know, it's 9 or 10 and not 20. You know, you put a breakout room in there with 20 plus people in it. I mean, you know, you don't get anything. So that was very well thought out. I thought it worked very well. We had a lot of good discussion, and you know, it's one of those things that you just look up and all of a sudden the time is going. You know, it's like 5 minutes left, and it's like, oh boy, you know, we just got started. You know, and so I really thought those went well. I thought everything went really well.
Awesome.
Megan, anything you would change or?
No, I thought it was really good. Same thing like he was kind of saying, and you guys mentioned as well, is that when we get in the breakout rooms, it seems like we can only get through 2 or 3 questions because everyone wants to talk so much. So I don't know if it would be a good idea to extend those or not. I hate to just say, hey, we're going to meet for an hour and a half so everyone can just ask all their questions. But people get the most out of that. I mean, my group was really chatty.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what the feedback is on that. Because we were talking the same thing. And one idea I want to bring up to you guys that just kind of occurred to me as we were doing this, because we've tried like, you know, breakout and focus groups in person, and sometimes they're a disaster just because there's not enough space and they're too large. I'm almost wondering what people would think about keeping Ltap U virtual and doing it like a week before the in-person conference. And then Mary brought up, it gives you a chance then to kind of interact more with those newer folks or things like that. So nothing we have to decide now, but you know, if you would have asked me last year if I thought that was an option, when I'd have been like, no.
No.
But I do
like that idea. Especially just from the Ltap U's that I've been to, I feel like although it's beneficial,